Chapter 30, Boxer, Bat, and the Tijuana Cartel. He was gregarious and open, always joking, a little guy with a shaved head, only 5 feet 7 inches tall, with tattoos covering his stomach and chest and running down his arms from the top of his shoulders to his wrist. 3-inch block letters spelling out M were tucked neatly below his neckline. His name was Jose Bat Marquez, and he was originally from a gang called Del Sol in Chula Vista, south of San Diego. His street name had been Dingbat. I guess he was just so crazy in the way he used to act, explained Boxer Enriquez. He used to get high on Sherm, PCP all the time, but the moniker was shortened to Bat after he became a member of the Mexican Mafia, and he didn't like to be referred to as Dingbat anymore. It was not a nickname worthy of a mafioso. Boxer had never met Bat until he showed up on the bus headed to the Rico trial. He observed that Bat was on the edge of his seat all the time, both figuratively and literally. 37-year-old Marquez was seeking out carnales with strong established crews to do some business, and he plopped himself down next to Enriquez to talk. Boxer wasn't necessarily well liked, but he was respected as a good organizer and a dedicated killer. And that's what Bat liked about him. Bat had a reputation as a killer too. In fact, Mexican authorities believe he was one of the group of San Diego gang members, most from a clique called Logan Heights, who in 1993 machine-gunned to death Cardinal Jesus Posadas Ocampo as he sat in his limousine at the Guadalajara airport. It was a paid hit for the ruthless and rich Arellano Felix organization, AFO, also known as the Tijuana Drug Cartel. Some say the Catholic cardinal was assassinated because he spoke out against the violent billionaire cartel bosses. Others believe his limo was mistaken for that of rival drug lord Chapo Guzman, a fierce Arellano Felix rival. In any event, law enforcement on both sides of the border believed that the assassination was spearheaded by David Popeye Barón, who was sponsored in 1992 by Bat for membership in La M. Barón, also from Logan Heights, became a top hitman for the cartel, moving back and forth across the border, enlisting recruits from his own barrio to do cartel dirty work. He was Bat's closest associate. Authorities believe that the two of them shipped tons of dope across the border and left a trail of bodies in their wake. Boxer knew that what Bat and Popeye were doing was extremely important for the future of La M. We had finally broken the Mexican Mafia out of the prison setting and entered into the international aspects of the mob. Bat and Popeye were at the vanguard of this undertaking. They took us international. Popeye Barón had M tattooed on his stomach, intertwined with a field of human skulls, some with beady red eyes representing his many victims. The San Diego gangster was in tight with the notorious Arellano Felix brothers. They ran a murderous multi-billion-dollar drug enterprise, and 4 of them were at the top of the most wanted list of both the FBI and the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, with multi-million-dollar rewards offered for their capture. Barón won the trust of the brutal AFO brothers when he helped a few of them escape from the Puerto Vallarta discotheque in 1992 when enemy Guzman cartel assassins shot up the place looking to rub out the competition. After that, the AFO brothers dubbed Barón Caballero Honorable, or Honorable Gentleman, for his perceived heroics. It was cut back to LCH for short, and that became his new identity. Pete Ahern, special agent in charge of the San Diego FBI office, described Barón as a ruthless, vindictive, egotistical thug, nothing more, nothing less. The intimidation is what I think the Arellanos respected in him, that people were afraid of him, and rightfully so, because he was a stone-cold killer. In a June 25, 1994 FBI undercover videotape of a Mexican Mafia meeting at the Days Inn Motel in Monterey Park, the same meeting at which mafiosi talked about actor Edward James Olmos being fair game, Bat bragged about his Mexican exploits with Popeye Barón, claiming they were like James Bond. Marquez was heard saying, "I'm hotter than a motherfucker," south of the border. He talked about Popeye doing hits for the AFO, including busting up that vato, the cardinal, at the airport, moving large quantities of drugs, and planning to steal rocket launchers and grenades from a Long Beach armory. Bat boasted, "I got this contract. They want this motherfucker Chapo Guzman. They want us to get... You're going to get money for any hit." He claimed that he wanted to help other brothers out by setting them up down south. 6 months later, Bat Marquez was arrested in San Diego for being a felon in possession of a gun and was sent back to prison. Now, as he sat next to Boxer Enriquez on the bus, he renewed the pitch he had given those carnales at the motel meeting in Monterey Park 2 years earlier. Bat said he was getting out on parole and would return to Mexico and reunite with Popeye Baron. He wanted to set up a hit exchange with Enriquez and his crew. Boxer said, that's a good idea. If we want someone hit, we can import the killers from Mexico. The Mexicans want a hit done, we can export our killers over there. Marquez promised that the pay would be generous. He also explained that he had AFO cartel connections to supply massive amounts of drugs for Boxer and his crew. Enriquez didn't hesitate. We'll get someone down there to see you, and we'll talk about it some more. There was no question in Boxer's mind that Bat Marquez was heavily involved with the multi-billion-dollar AFO Tijuana drug cartel and had bold plans to cement his position there and expand his business with MA contacts in the United States, such as Boxer Enriquez. In addition to the 1994 FBI surveillance video, officers with the California Department of Corrections gathered other intelligence through an MA informant who explained, Bat's plan is to take all the brothers up for parole that have 2 strikes in California, to Tijuana, so they can racketeer over there, Mexico, and not face 3 strikes here. The same CDC intelligence document explained that Bat was still in contact with Baron, and he wants to take over all of TJ in Baja California and restart a new MA in Mexico where all the drugs are at. Popeye already established himself in Mexico and is greatly feared by the drug families over there. Popeye is the main hitman for the Arellano Felix brothers and is the one who killed the Cardinal Ocampo at the Guadalajara airport and is the one who planted a bomb in front of the hotel at a quinceañera in Guadalajara. A confidential memo went on to say that Mexican federales had confiscated homes that belonged to Popeye in Baja and Rosarito Beach, and that as a result of those actions, the Attorney General was assassinated. It said that Bat felt that Popeye had been a contractor for the AFO long enough and that it was time to propose a new plan, that MA gets half of all the drugs or profits that pass the border. But Popeye tells us he needs an army of soldiers and brothers to accomplish this. So Bat devised a plan to send brothers and camaradas over there to Popeye. Bat tells me that if they get enough soldiers and brothers across the border and the Felix brothers, the AFO kingpins, refuse to accept their offer, they will go to war and assassinate them. All the 18th Street factions and wanted criminals on the run in TJ are now under Popeye's control. This is why we made Popeye a brother, so that these Chicanos would listen to Popeye. Boxer felt that the plan to take on AFO bosses was overzealous. We would end up in a big, unproductive war. And what eventually happened was the relationship between La M and the AFO became more symbolic. We would end up in a big, unproductive war. And what eventually happened was the relationship between La M and the AFO became more symbiotic. The CDC's informant also insisted that Popeye was a terrorist with major supplies of assault weapons, drugs, and money and connections in Europe, Colombia, Japan, Jamaica, and Italy. And he talked about the influence that Popeye and Bat had with politicians, judges, military officials, and law enforcement. Contacts extended to a bail bonds company, U.S. Embassy workers, Department of Motor Vehicles employees, Border Patrol agents, a San Diego County Sheriff's deputy, and even social services workers. The informant specifically mentioned Rachel Ortiz's government-funded Barrio Station project in San Diego. Boxer pointed out again that all those contacts were and are important to La M. The same CDC intelligence memorandum laid out Bat's proposal to restructure MA tax collections in Southern California as well. He wants to just wipe out, rob, kill all the leaders unless they're willing to work with the MA and sell Popeye shipments only. They sell for the MA or they get their drugs confiscated and either killed or chased out. Bat wants to end taxing and force dealers to sell for us for a percentage of the profits. The secret document noted that Bat had already proposed this to Chuco and the brothers in the meeting, but they chose to stick with their method of strong-arming dealers on a smaller scale and collecting tribute from local gangs. Boxer believed that some other carnales didn't have the vision. Bat did. The confidential memo also warned that Bat would flee to Mexico as soon as he was released from prison. He did. It was about 6 months after the RICO trial. The FBI had been alerted that Bat Marquez was planning to jump parole and head south of the border to rejoin Baron and his bloodthirsty killing machine. In June 1997, the mafioso was under surveillance, different law enforcement agencies taking shifts when he drove into traffic and vanished. On November 25, 1997, two Mexican army soldiers who were part of a special unit designed to hunt down the ruthless Arellano Felix brothers were sitting in a blue Chevy Suburban parked outside a government courthouse in Tijuana. The two drug fighters were massacred in broad daylight, making it 6 men from the same detail executed on the streets within months. There were so many holes in the side of the truck that it looked like a big blue slice of Swiss cheese. More than 5 dozen casings from AK-47 assault rifles littered the pavement. According to official records, agents believe that Bat was one of the hired guns. The Arellano Felix brothers, noted Boxer, liked Bat's ferocity and willingness to participate in violence, but he was crazy. The day after the two Mexican army drug fighters were executed, Jesus Blancorolles, the outraged editor of a local newspaper called Zeta, boldly named David Baron, aka LCH, as the leader of the AFO hit team. The day after the article appeared, Blancornelius, riding in his red Ford Explorer, was ambushed on his way to work at the newspaper office. Again, striking in broad daylight, 8 gunmen joined Baron in a well-planned attack. Dead on the spot, his lifeless body slumped against a short concrete wall on the edge of the sidewalk, as if someone had released all the air from a big blow-up doll. LCH was dressed in jeans, tennis shoes, and a red sweatshirt that nearly matched the color of a large pool of blood that circled his carcass. The hired assassin still had a grip on the 12-gauge shotgun he was carrying. Witnesses say that the caballero, honorable, was on his way to walk up to finish the blanqueros at close range. Investigators believe that Ignacio Hernandez Mesa, aka Wolfie, a gang member from the Pasole neighborhood in Oceanside, and one of the hitmen who ambushed Blanqueros, was later executed by cartel henchmen for firing the ricochet bullet that killed Baron. Boxer Enriquez speculated, however, that Bat himself may have wanted Baron out of the way. I think Bat did it. And if Bat's not going to get his cut, he's not above killing. The Mexican Mafia destroys everything it touches, and one rule is never get a brother involved in your business because he'll destroy it. I think that's what Bat came to understand. They were business partners. Popeye was stepping all over Bat's toes while he was busted, and I actually think that's probably why Popeye got hit. Still, just months after Baron was hit, Boxer, lured by the prospect of huge profits, sent his trusted confidant to Tijuana to meet with Bat Marquez and talk business. It began with a lengthy series of 3-way phone calls with Bat. With a Bat contact in San Diego, a woman named Angel. Boxer said, my trusted confidant eventually hooked up with Angel in San Diego, who changed cars twice and went through a routine of counter-surveillance driving techniques before ending up at the border. Bat personally walked across, picked up my representative, re-entered Mexico, and got into a maroon-colored, armor-plated SUV equipped with a 2-way radio communication system and a police scanner. There were a couple of chase cars following as they drove in circles around Tijuana for a couple of hours. More counter-surveillance driving before landing at Bat's house up in the hills. There were 2 vicious-looking pit bulls in the front yard, one chained close to the front door and the other roaming freely. Heavily armed pistoleros surrounded the place, and there was constant communication with the AFO contacts scrutinizing Bat's every move. Bat's place sat on the top of a hill, and there was a view of TJ and the border from his balcony. In reality, it was probably a short 10-minute drive to the border. Later, recalled Boxer, there was a short trip to a small ranch Bat owned in nearby Rosarito Beach. It was about a 10-minute drive to the ocean and a honky-tonk boardwalk of restaurants and nightclubs. He had horses and they went riding in the countryside. Bat was consuming doses of methadone along the way. Back at the Tijuana house, Bat asked Boxer's trusted confidant to stay for dinner. Expecting a nasty, authentic Mexican meal, they sat down at the kitchen table and were served good old American hormel hash out of a can. Unbelievable, Boxer laughed. It was ridiculous. What wasn't ridiculous were the massive amounts of drugs Bat wanted Boxer's crew to sell across the border. He had access to ephedrine, the main ingredient in methamphetamine, in 55-gallon barrels, and cocaine, heroin, and marijuana. 50 pounds at a pop, recollected Boxer, hundreds of kilos at a time. He wanted my people to handle it, and I had to assume responsibility for it. I was 1,000 miles away and locked up in prison. It was too big. If something went wrong, I could easily get whacked for it. More importantly, the way they play in Mexico, my family would have been prime targets too. I couldn't take that chance. He passed on the lucrative offer. That didn't slow Bat down for a second. US DEA agents say he took over Baron's killing machine and hooked up with an Arellano Felix drug boss named Gustavo Rivera Martinez, a fugitive who had a $2 million price tag on his head. A year later, Marquez was indicted in Mexico for murder and attempted murder. Besides being a suspect in the execution of Cardinal Ocampo, the assassination of the 2 Mexican army soldiers, and the attack on newspaperman Blanqueros, Bat was responsible, Mexican officials believe, for at least 20 murders, probably more. He allegedly strangled a marijuana dealer with a pair of pantyhose for refusing to barter on a price, and he fatally shot an associate and his girlfriend in front of their 5-year-old child for reneging on a $2,000 drug debt. He was also a suspect in at least a half dozen murders on the U.S. side of the border, though he has not been charged or indicted on those counts. Michael Vigil, special agent in charge of the San Diego Field Division of the Drug Enforcement Administration, called Marquez a stone-cold killer. This man has absolutely no remorse about taking another human life. An executioner, an individual who has kidnapped not only rival gang members but law enforcement officers and others, and taken them to areas and then tortured and killed them. At the same time, he was a suspect for moving tons of drugs across the border. In August 2001, a federal grand jury in San Diego indicted Bat Marquez and Gustavo Rivera Martinez on a list of drug charges for smuggling 1,000 to 2,000 kilogram loads of marijuana and 200 kilogram loads of cocaine into the United States by boat. Bat continued to elude capture. Boxer Enriquez claimed that Bat even had a daring plan to break out MS Raul Weddle Sherm Leon out of Pelican Bay State Prison. Leon was set to take methamphetamine to accelerate his heartbeat and then complain about chest pain so prison staff would transport him to Sutter Coast Hospital in Crescent City. It's a small town hospital with no serious security force. Gunmen were expected to intercept Leon at the emergency room and rush him off to a waiting helicopter for an escape to Mexico, courtesy of Bat and the AFO. An MA dropout later claimed Weddle Sherm even sent him on a couple dry runs to the hospital. The plot was thwarted by the dropout's admissions. They were actually going to implement this plan. Then on November 22, 2003, more than 6 years after he jumped parole in the United States, a bald, flabby-looking Bat Marquez was arrested by Mexican police in a working-class neighborhood of eastern Tijuana. Federales found tons of marijuana in an arsenal of 61 firearms inside the warehouse where he was caught, along with 8 alleged members of his crew, ranging in age from 17 to 59. The cache of weapons included automatic assault rifles, shotguns, handguns, and an array of killer knives. There were bulletproof vests, police shirts, and caps, and evidence of a torture room with handcuffs. Bat was shipped to a prison outside Mexico City and vowed to fight extradition back to the United States. Shortly after his arrest, explosives were smuggled into his prison cell, and he tried to blow his way out. The DEA's vigil said it was a big explosive. However, a lot of the explosive did not detonate. Otherwise, the whole wall of his prison cell would have disintegrated. 2 months later, it became clear what had led to Bat's arrest. The San Diego County District Attorney's Office named 2 Mexican Mafia members, Marquez and Roberto Tawa Marin. and 35-year-old associates in a sweeping 52-count indictment and charging them with methamphetamine dealing, possession of assault weapons, robbery, kidnapping, attempted murder, and conspiracy to murder 2 civilians. Cops got a tip that the Old Town Street Gang in National City, 6 miles southeast of San Diego, asked for and received Bat's permission to kill a local police detective who is actively pursuing cases against the gang. Government agents claim that a Bat lieutenant, Arturo Nidal or Primo Torres, had a military background and was supposed to spearhead the detective's murder. Local, state, and federal law enforcement launched an investigation to make sure the plot to kill an officer never materialized. It didn't. During 8 months of wiretaps, detectives found Bat in Tijuana, tweaked out on methamphetamines, and up until 4 o'clock in the morning talking about drug deals and murder. In the end, they were able to pinpoint where Mexican officials could find and arrest him. Deputy District Attorney Mark Amador, a gang division prosecutor who coordinated the investigation, said, "Everyone knows he, Bat Marquez, controls the streets of San Diego." He described Bat as the infamous leader of an inmate-controlled drug distribution network that taxed all local dealers under a reign of terror. "And that's exactly the control Laeme needed," emphasized Boxer. Bat had street savvy. He knew that if brothers had crews, he could supply them with dope, plenty of dope. One of the Bat-related gangsters who was arrested, already on probation for a terrorist threat conviction, was caught with 3 guns and a list of 70 witnesses who had testified before the grand jury. San Diego County District Attorney Bonnie Dumanes said some had been threatened, intimidated, attacked, stabbed, or shot by members of this ruthless gang. According to court documents, one woman was held hostage for more than 15 hours because the gangsters thought she had talked to police about an attempted murder. They threatened to kill her, poured hot sauce in her eyes, and cut her long hair off after ordering her to strip naked. Investigators say others had their noses broken or were tortured with cigarette burns. And all the time, federal agents stressed Bat maintained his ties to the Tijuana cartel. During a February 2004 interview in Mexico with the Fox 6 television reporter from San Diego named Pete Fuentes, Bat said he was just a high school dropout who grew up in Chula Vista and worked as a house painter. He told Fuentes he was arrested in Tijuana by machine gun-toting men dressed in black who put a hood over his head, beat him, stuffed him into the trunk of a car, and put him on a plane to Mexico City. "I thought they were going to kill me," he said. Marquez denied being an AFO hitman or a drug dealer and had no idea who David Popeye Barron was. He claimed he signed a confession in Baja because he was tortured. Marquez managed to tell the reporter with a straight face, "I ain't done nothing at all." On June 27, 2007, Jose Bat Marquez was extradited back to the United States. He was flown into a private airport in San Diego wearing khaki pants, a white t-shirt underneath a blue bulletproof vest, and handcuffs. Bat was escorted by federal marshals, surrounded by cops with big guns, and taken in a convoy of government-owned SUVs to the Metropolitan Detention Center, where he remained. Trials are pending in both federal and state courts. If convicted, he will most likely never see the outside of a prison again. 2 of the Arellano Felix brothers, who ran the billion-dollar Tijuana drug cartel, are now in the U.S. prison system. That too could favor Laeme's position with Mexican drug kingpins. Boxer noted, "Who runs the prisons? The Mexican Mafia does. The overall impact for the mob is huge. Laeme can have them, Tijuana cartel bosses, killed or protected. It gives us great influence with the Mexican drug lords. And other drug cartels will come along," predicted Boxer. "This relationship with the AFO is no one-time thing."